between. The modes of partnerships, recent emerging modes of partnerships. I've got a few examples there. The French distribution model, that's a bit under question now in light of the Renault, Nissan, Mitsubishi debacle and Carlos Ghosn, and it's just been released on bail on Wednesday. But that's been an important kind of partnership, strategic partnership that Japan has been forging with other players also in order to enter the African market. And then something that's emerging, which is quite interesting, is collaboration with Turkish companies, especially in the construction sector. Turkey is, after China, the second largest player in African construction. So it's an important player in construction in Africa. And Japanese corporations have made certain collaborations with these Turkish companies. When you speak to Japanese company executives and you ask them about why, so why this partnership with Turkish construction companies, then the answer is because the Turkish have experience in construction. They can put together construction quite quickly and effectively. They have a healthy risk appetite, and they're good in construction implementation. The Japanese part of that partnership is that the Japanese are still risk averse, but they provide the financing, and they are also better with infrastructure design. So there's that division of labor between the Turkish and Japanese corporations. So I mentioned this briefly, the case of South Africa. Within the African setting, in terms of Japanese trade, investment, and general economic expansion, South Africa is the pinnacle of Japan's economic activities in Africa. And there are some statistics on why this is so. South Africa is also a supplier for Japan, the main supplier of a very important metal, platinum. Platinum and all the things that are happening in the South African mining industry, and platinum specifically, has had some implications for that part of the Japan-South Africa relationship. But it's nonetheless one of the, I think it's still one of the main traded commodities between Japan and South Africa. Let me just briefly talk about, I've spoken about the Japanese side and the Japanese interest in Africa and South Africa. Let me flip it and talk about briefly South Africa's interest in Asia before moving towards a conclusion about the free and open Indo-Pacific. I think it's important to recognize that there's a kind of a differentiated, four factors of history, a differentiated approach that South Africa follows towards Asia. For a long time, there hasn't been much engagement, especially up until 1994 with Asia. Japan, before 1994, was really the only Asian partner that South Africa had in terms of trade. Asia is generally regarded as supportive of South Africa's larger foreign policy objectives, although it's also understood that the traditional partners like the northern partners, the European Union and USA, are important. And then also South Africa follows a different paradigm or different strategies across different parts of Asia. Generally, Japan is regarded as a global north actor, and Japan is engaged with as a global north actor. China, India are engaged with as global south actors, so there's this kind of rhetoric of south-south diplomacy with various measures of success. And South Korea is a kind of in between. It's a intermediate actor, and I was struck, for instance, to find out that most of South Korea's investments in Africa is actually not in in South Africa, it's in other parts of Africa. But there are cognate or similar latecomer development interests that South Korea and South Africa share. Just a snapshot of how our trade looks with Asian economies, imports and exports together, so the value of trade. So China, and that's been since 2009. China is our largest trade partner. Japan is a distant second, and then India is a distant third, and then interestingly, one would expect there to be more trade with Indonesia and Malaysia, but that's not the case. I briefly want to say something about Northeast Asia, because that's been a theme that's been prevailing this morning. We spoke about Japan, China, and so forth, so that's why when I talk now about South Africa's Asian interest, I want to talk about Northeast Asia. South Africa's diplomatic relations in Northeast Asia are on multi-speed tracks for political, geopolitical, historical, economic reasons. So it's differentiated. We engage differently with China than we engage with Japan, but our economic exposure, both to China and Japan, are strikingly similar in terms of our trade structure, in terms of what we export to Northeast Asia, to those countries, and what we import from them. Exporting a lot of our metals and minerals, primary resources, and importing manufactured goods. And we also have an interesting kind of exposure to the regional rivalry that exists between China and Japan in terms of commanding the global steel industry. Some interesting position that South Africa occupies there. Whereas South Africa has a trade deficit with China, we've got a trade surplus with Japan, which is probably useful in this context to point out. So this was a lot of information and quite dense. Just to make an attempt to draw some of these themes together and speak to our main theme of the free and open Indo-Pacific and what it can mean for South Africa and the African continent at large. I think we need to be sensible about the free and open Indo-Pacific. I've outlined some of the geopolitical constraints and perhaps challenges of this. The scope and latitude of the FOIP is likely to change over the coming years. We don't yet know what it will look like in concrete terms. From the South African perspective, it would be useful to engage with the most pivotal players in the free and open Indo-Pacific. So that would be Japan, but not to the exclusion of the other emerging pivotal players like the United States, like Australia, and of course India, although the engagement would be differentiated for all of those players. And then there is a lot of benefit to be gained out of the economic components of the Japan-led free and open Indo-Pacific. And science diplomacy, science and technology diplomacy was mentioned. Just to note that under Minister Naledi Pandor, when she was Minister of Science and Technology, a lot of things, good things happened in terms of science diplomacy with Japan. We hope with the new minister that continues. So economic patterns, some of those that I've outlined. With Japan, some potential expansion areas based on comparative advantage. The automotive industry cannot be underemphasized, so the potential of further expansion of the South African automotive industry with different ways of engagement by Japanese actors. We already have 3 big Japanese automotive producers assembling in South Africa, and also exporting and importing a lot of Japanese automobiles. And the automotive industry is the largest manufacturing industry in South Africa, contributes 6 to 8% to South Africa's GDP. So it is really a pivotal industry and scope for further expansion. There is scope for further expansion. Our challenge in this industry has been a lack of quality, lack of requisite quality of local producers, in other words, tier 2 and tier 3 producers. So while localization has been an important policy emphasis of the South African government, the quality of local producers has not been up to standard. So that is something to look at. And then some of the others that I have detailed there: heavy industry, quality infrastructure, and infrastructure both smart as well as sort of aimed at big development, and so forth. So yeah, thanks.